This episode of Jack is brought to you by Weaver Leather.
Well, I'm back with Jack, and as I sit with him right now, he has 78 hours and 10 minutes of training. And that includes all the groundwork that I've done from the beginning. And that includes, in the last episode, when I took him down to the Quarter Horse Congress, the 3 hours that I had him out ponying him around from Newt. So it encompasses all the training. What I'd like to do right now is give you kind of an update of what he's doing as far as his spins, his steering, his stop, and then show you the new ideas that I'm starting to work on. So I'm going to start out with a little bit of my warm-up routine, just kind of a mini one so that we don't spend as much time, because I'm riding him for right around an hour a day. So I would say he's having kind of an average day today. He's done it better than that, but this is about average. And so I would take and I'll keep working on that because I want to get to where I can actually bend him to about 45 degrees and be able to move his shoulder real fluidly. And you can see he kind of gets sticky in his feet. He's not comfortable staying forward and bending that far. But it's going to be important to me that he gets that flexibility because it's really going to help him in some of his advanced maneuvers. But the other thing it really helps with is the higher his comprehension level of that goes, the better he's going to neck rein. And so he's got enough comprehension that he's starting to neck rein. By the way, I haven't trained him to put his head down. He's just doing it. He's just stretching his neck. I've actually, when I start working on the stops, I've been working on pulling his head up because he naturally wants to put his head down, and during the stops, that makes him drop his withers down, and he tends to stop on his front end too much. So I'll talk about that when we're actually working on the stops. But what else I do when I'm riding around is I will ride him one-handed now some, and I'll pick up on him and just kind of steer him around. If he needs a little help, I'll just bend with that inside rein just a little bit. But when I come out and ride him around, I'll warm him up for about 10 or 15 minutes, just trotting around like I am right here, just kind of picking up and steering. So he's getting comfortable with the idea of neck reining. And if I want to pick up a little bit more, I'll use that second hand, driving him forward with my legs. Big change. I'm going to change directions here. I kind of slid the reins so that inside rein tightened up, so it helped him a little bit. But he's starting to catch on to the idea of neck reining. And a lot of that is because he's catching on to the idea of counterbending. So this is something that I spend 10 or 15 minutes a day. I spend maybe 5-10 minutes doing the counterbend. So I end up with a warm-up that takes me somewhere between 20 to 30 minutes where it's kind of warming up and a little bit of training. Then the next thing I move into after I get him warmed up is I will go ahead and move into working on my spins. Everything else I do, I ride him two-handed still. The warm-up is where he's starting to feel a little bit of that neck reining, but I don't require him to know it under pressure. My spins, I'm pretty happy with him. We'll see what he's going to give me today. What I'm looking for him to do is to really sit on that hind end and move his front end around his hind end. And I'm looking for him to, preferably right now, pivot on what I would consider the wrong foot, which if I'm spinning to the right, when he's finished, I'll want him spinning on his right foot. But right now, I actually would like it if he's sitting back on his left foot. Ooh. I'm going to go ahead and do that a couple more times because I don't usually talk while I'm doing it. and he's listening for me to say whoa, so he's not quite focused on the spin. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that a couple more times without talking through it to help him out just a little bit. Oh. I spin him and turn him around on average about 3 times each direction. So I just did 3 sets of spins to the right. That's pretty normal. I'll take a break here. I'll go out and trot circles to the left and do 3 sets of spins to the left, and that would be pretty average. Nice trot forward there. You can see how when I'm working him like this, he's pretty comfortable with it. His mouth's quiet, his tail's quiet. He's understanding what we're doing. Whoa. I'm getting what I would say probably 10% less than normal. He's a little bit distracted. He's watching the horses out here, and he had yesterday off, so he's just a touch more distracted than normal, but I'll take it. He's a 2-year-old, and he's allowed. Oh. There I felt like he was trying quite a bit more than he had the time before. I'm not looking for perfection. We're just moving on a little bit every day. The next big concept I want to introduce to Jack is moving his hips. And right now, if I take my leg and I slide it back here, if I press it on him, he doesn't really have an idea of what to do. You can see his ears rotate back. But he doesn't understand really. He thinks about moving forward, but he doesn't really understand what moving his hip would be because I haven't taught him to move away from pressure except for going forward. So I'm going to start teaching him to move his hip because that's going to be really important when it comes to really good lead departures and lead changes. Because when a horse lopes off, for them to get the correct lead, when they're loping, if you can see these straight lines here in front of me, when a horse lopes, if they're going to take their right lead, their hip's going to be to the right, and they're going to lope off like you would skip to the right, that would be your right lead. Then if you were going to skip to the left, you would have this leg leading. So when they're loping, they're either on their left lead or their right lead. And eventually we want to be able to do a lead change, which means it's like skipping, and then being able to change to the other skip. Are you getting all this? Because this will make it easier if you just copy me. So skipping is what they do when they're loping around. Right now, for me to pick up the leads, which a horse is on the correct lead. If it's loping to the left, it's supposed to be on the inside or left lead. If it's loping to the right, it's supposed to be on the inside or the right lead. And if you can't remember that, just try skipping. If you skip a small circle like this with your left, if you're going to the left with your left leg leading, it's pretty easy. If you go in that same small circle and try to make your right leg lead, you'll notice it's a lot more work. And that's the way it is for the horses. What I've been doing right now to get a lead, the correct lead on him, is I've just been playing around with moving his shoulders. So if I'm going on a circle, if I move his shoulders out, it kind of leaves his hip into that circle. So if I'm going to the left, I fade his shoulder out a little bit, and that gets me that hip to the inside. But I'd like to be able to just move his hip. So the first thing I'm going to start doing is down here on the ground, I'm going to take my thumb and I'm going to press into his side, and I'm going to ask him to move. So I'm going to move just a little bit for the camera angle here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stand down here. Jack has no idea what I'm about to do. And I'm going to take my thumb and I'm going to press right around where my heel would, or right around where my spur would. And I'm going to press right here. And I'm going to wiggle it up and down, and you can kind of see him moving his body. He's kind of cringing. Now he's turning his head, looking at me going, oh, what in the world could she be doing? He's really turning his head because he's trying to figure out what I might possibly want. And there he went ahead and he stepped away. And he probably did that because if you're just hanging out around your horses, if you're in the stall cleaning them, sometimes you'll just push him over. If he's in the cross ties, we've pushed him over. But I need him to do that a little quicker. I need him to not have to think quite that much. So I'm going to start spending dedicated time doing this. This is a great camera angle right now. If we zoom in just a little bit more, so you're really getting like my feet planted and my thumb here, because what I want you to see, big concept here, I'm going to press my thumb in. And if you can see that, my thumb has sunk into his side. Now, when he stepped back. It took my thumb out of his side, so he got away from it. I want to reward him like that when he steps away from me. I'm going to move him for the camera angle one more time, and I'll show you how I'm going to make, I don't want to reward him for backing up, which is what he just basically got, was a reward for backing up. I don't want this to be a backup cue. What I'm going to do, I'm going to plant my feet, I'm going to plant my thumb, I'm going to push, but then I'm going to pull his head towards me so he swings away. Push here, pull his head. The further I pull his head, the more likely he is to swing that hip. So he swung that hip away. The front end stayed relatively still. The hip moved. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to rub just a minute, kind of say you don't always have to move when I'm here. I'm going to press, pull his head, press, hold, and I'm just going to wait. Like you can see him, he's looking at my thumb with his nose, and he's saying that's uncomfortable. I'm kind of pushing, I'm holding. He stepped away. Right there, if you can see, my thumb didn't move. So that's what I'm going to start doing on both sides. And then what's going to happen is when I mount up, obviously he doesn't know all this yet, but I'm going to give you the short of what I'm going to be doing in between when you're not watching me. When I mount up, I'm going to be working on the same thing. I'm going to be sitting on top of him. I'm going to take my spur. I'm going to close it on him. It will probably be in my stirrup, but this way you can see. I'm going to have this rein ready. I'm going to close the spur here. I'm going to press hard, just firm, hold it, pull his head. And when I feel that hip kick, now he's backing up more because that's what he knows. I'm going to hold it till I feel that hip kick. And I wish that was a little cleaner. But see, up here on his back, he's thinking about other things I've trained him to do up here on his back. He's thinking about the backup and he's thinking about the spin. That's why I'm going to spend the next bunch of time doing it down here on the ground until from both sides, when I press like this, he doesn't sit here and wonder and think. He just goes, oh, I know what that means. And then he's like, what are you doing to my side? If you move your butt away, it'll work. So I'm going to keep doing this until he gets it down here. Then the carryover onto his back will be much better. He's like, that's wrong. If they offer to bite or anything, then we would correct him. But he's just standing here. He can't figure out. Oh, there he goes. And it's okay, just like in a bunch of the other stuff we've done, giving him time to think about it is what's going to make him own the idea. I'm not just sitting here forcing him to do it. I'm annoying him until he chooses to do it. That's going to be our big thing to work on for the next couple weeks.
Join us next week for another episode of Jack.